was 27 years old and I had just gotten out of a 2.5 year relationship. I had done my healing, and I really remember having this moment where I was like, I think I'm done with dating. I don't know if any of you have ever had that moment. You're like, I think I'm good. I've had my experiences. I would love to find a great long-term partner, life partner. And so I went to you, and like you said, you guided me through this process. And a few months later, I think within 6 months, Sunny walked into my life, and it's been 9 years now in January.
Welcome to The Way of the Muse, a podcast for women who want to create richness in every area of their lives, from business and career to lifestyle, relationships, family, purpose, and fulfillment. I'm Gigi Sage.
And I'm Makena Sage. We're a mother-daughter coaching team, and combined, we've spent over 4 decades helping people create their best and most fully expressed lives. If you're ready to step into your bigger dreams with ease, fun, and flow, you're in the right place. Let's get into the episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very exciting episode. And this one is on finding love. And Makena, I know that you've experienced this in, what was that, 8 years ago or something? When
Almost 9.
Oh my gosh, can you believe that? I guess that must mean I'm getting younger and younger, right?
Absolutely.
So you came to me because you were curious about finding love. You said, I'm really ready. I really want to find my life partner. And so we went through a process together, which you eventually turned into a great exercise, as you do most of the things I share with you. And so that's something that we can really share with everyone, that they can take away from this, what we're doing today, and really apply it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I tell this story all the time because I love love. And I wish that everyone could be with just someone that they adore, who adores them, and experience what that's like to have love that is like, I think I said this in the last episode, but really a relationship that's like a battery pack, for the rest of their life. And so in that, so I was 27 years old and I had just gotten out of a 2.5 year relationship. I had done my healing, and I really remember having this moment where I was like, I think I'm done with dating. I don't know if any of you have ever had that moment. You're like, I think I'm good. I've had my experiences. I would love to find a great long-term partner, life partner. And so I went to you, and like you said, you guided me through this process. And I followed it. I'm a very good student. So I followed it to a T. And a few months later, I think within 6 months, Sunny walked into my life. And it's been 9 years now in January. So I love sharing this process with people.
And
I've heard a lot of other. Go ahead.
You are such a great student. I mean, I told a lot of people this process, and you just went with it and did it and created, like you said, within 6 months, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I have shared this with other people, and I have had people reach out to me and say, I did your process and I called in my partner and we're getting married. I've had multiple people tell me this. So just to share that link right away with you guys, if you want to, try this, do the process. It is wayofthemuse.com/soulmate, wayofthemuse.com/soulmate, because we won't go into the whole process here today, but we are going to talk about what gets in the way. So we don't go into that in this guide. The guide is going to really walk you through how to get really clear on what you want, maybe a different approach than you've taken before. And it has a really fun part that involves dancing. I remember very clearly, you told me, Gigi, we would dance around your apartment in Amsterdam as I was calling in my person. And then at our wedding, fun full circle moment, we danced that song. So I danced with Sunny to the song that I used to help call him in. So all of that is in the guide, but today we want to talk about what gets in the way of calling in love.
First, do you want to share the song?
It was Cheerleader by Omi. So that was really big. 9 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, we had so much fun dancing around in the apartment in Amsterdam, all the windows everywhere, right?
Yeah, I imagined that it was my partner singing to me, that I was his cheerleader.
Yeah.
So
right.
that was a really fun part of the process.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are some things that we see. First, I think we want to share a little bit of a disclaimer, right? Because as we've said before on the podcast, we are going to speak mostly in terms of speaking to women because that's our primary audience, and women who are in relationship with men because that is the majority of our audience. That being said, what we share always, you can take it and apply it to same-sex relationships. You might be a man who's listening to this and you're calling in your woman or man, right? So however, it doesn't matter the dynamics here, even though we're going to speak in terms of binary terms and men and women, you can really apply all of this to, you can always sub out the words masculine and feminine in your mind, because if you are, let's say, in a same-sex partnership or calling one in, then there's usually always a masculine and a feminine energy predominantly in the relationship. That's what creates the polarity. So just keep that in mind as we're sharing today. And then let's get into it, Gigi. So what are some of the things that you see that stop people or slow down the process of calling in a partner, calling in love?
Yeah, and just let me share also that this was my work for many, 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 many years, because I developed workshops in the 80s and 90s, and I taught these workshops around the world. And my topic was on relationship. And part of that was assisting women and men to find partners. And I did this, through coaching on the phone. It's so funny. I just want to share this one part is, this in London one time, a woman somehow got referred to me and she reached out and I started coaching her and she found her partner. And then she started telling all her friends. So for a while, it was about a year and a half, I coached all these women in London to find their men. And what I'm going to share in the things that get in the way are some of the things that I saw as I was working with these women or men. And the thing that you had, Makena, that was great is you had me by your side all the time. So we got to walk through a lot of this, like you said. So in the guide that you're getting, it's part of it, but really there was much deeper work that happened. So one of the main things I see is that not prioritizing this because it feels like a lot of work. If you are busy and you have a career or you have children, what happens is, we get so busy and then kind of a partner is last, in the back burner somewhere. And the other point of that is you really have to set up your life for it. You've got to make the space. When you came to me, you were really ready to make the space. And to create that time and space, it takes some effort, some intentional goal setting there. And I think that's really what you did, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think time and space to do things like go through a process like this. So really educate yourself, or really, some of the things we're talking about today that get in the way is walking through those, on your own or with support, because that's so important. It seems like a lot of time, but if you think about, if you're really calling in a life partner, which many of you probably are who are listening to this, then think about, it's 9 years now, and hopefully it'll be a lifetime with Sunny. So was that worth the time and energy that I put in those months? 100%, right? But in the moment, it can feel like, oh my gosh, I'm busy. I have my career. I have, whatever it is you have going on. Do I really want to prioritize this? And I think to be honest with yourself about that is really important too. If you're not going to prioritize it, doesn't mean it couldn't show up, but be really honest that it's maybe not a priority that you're really going to put time and energy into at this time, and be okay with that. Or decide that you are.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point, because I watch, especially women beat themselves up about this is, oh, I want a partner, but I just can't find the time, or I can't find one. And that honesty, getting honest about, are you willing to do this? And if you're not right now, then that's okay. Don't pretend like you are when you aren't, kind of thing.
Yeah. And another thing I touched on there is is getting clear about what kind of relationship you are calling in. Are you just wanting to date and have some fun, right? That's important too. Or are you really looking for a long-term partnership? And if you are, what kind of long-term partnership? Do you want marriage? Do you want kids, right? So some of these things are really, really important to be super clear on, because like you always share, Gigi, about creating in the world, in the universe, it's like the ATM example. Do you want to give that example? If you go up to an ATM machine.
Yeah, if you go up to an ATM machine and you say, I want $100 or I want some money, how much money will you get? You probably won't get anything, right? But if you go up and you push in $100, then you get that $100. And so like you're saying here it's to get really specific and know what you want, because I also find often that people go for the fantasy instead of the experience that they really, really want. And they go for something like they think that they want instead of pursuing that ultimate experience of what they're looking for in their lives. So in other words, they go for the picture. It's kind of like the tall, dark, and handsome, right? We all love it if we get the tall, dark, and handsome, but not all men are tall, dark, and handsome. And so you have to spend some time looking into, I love to say, what's the experience you want with a person? How do you want to feel? They may end up looking different than you think they'll look. And usually, I think a lot of times they do. But you really want to go into what's that experience? Like you said, McKenna, what's the certain lifestyle you want? Do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? And, for like you, I told you early on, you needed a man that adored you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the picture isn't always how they look physically. It's not that every person is going, oh, only if they look this way physically. I think you're talking about a picture in terms of an idea, right? In terms of we have this certain concept of, oh, they're going to be this way, or they're going to be that way. They're going to have this kind of career, or like you said, or it could be that they're going to look this certain way. But it is really, you helped me see the experience in terms of the feeling that I wanted. And then also really you guided me to get super, super clear on, okay, what did I want? I knew I wanted marriage. I knew I did want children eventually, not right away. I knew I wanted a certain kind of lifestyle and for us to really grow that over time. So there was a lot of clarity there for me in terms of the experience I wanted. And so when I met Sunny, there was a recognition of alignment right away there. It was like, oh, our visions for the future and our values and all these different aspects really aligned. And that was, I think, a huge indicator to me, but I wouldn't have known that if I didn't have that clarity going in.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, it's important to look at, do you want to find someone that it's at the beginning of their career and you want to, be with them as they grow and develop and really be that supportive and empowering person? Or do you want someone that's already has their success in their career? Because those are very two different lifestyles too, right? And the other thing is, for women, do you want a guy who's a real family man and he's a businessman, but you guys camp together, you spend a lot of times in the outdoors with your children, and you love that lifestyle and it's the way you want to raise your family? Or do you want a super career focused guy who's really committed to his work and he creates a certain lifestyle, pays for everything, gives you freedom to kind of look and see what you want to do, and to see in you what's really important? And like you said, I think the values that are important for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted someone I could grow with. I didn't necessarily want someone that was already there in terms of career, lifestyle, whatever. I wanted someone that would come in and we would build a life together. And that's what we've been doing over these last 9 years, which, like you said, it's a very different choice than someone if I had said, okay, I want someone who's super successful, already got their life set. I'm going to, walk into that life, or we're going to, of course, build aspects of it together. But yeah, it was a different choice there. And then, of course, growing a family and things like that as well. So I love that. Just thinking about like, what's the feeling? What's the, like you're saying, the lifestyle, if you're super outdoorsy or you want to travel a lot. And Do you want someone who's more entrepreneurial maybe, or someone who has more stability in a, kind of job or something like that? So it won't always be exactly what you think, but I think the important thing there you're saying is the feeling, the experience. Yeah.
And the values are important. Yeah, the values are really important. I say you can find a partner maybe that has some different values than you, but it's a very difficult relationship from my experience if the values are completely different. So it's good to see what kind of values are important to you and really what are your top three, and in those are your non-negotiables. And when we talk about and take people through a process to really figure that out, what's important to them in a partner.
Yeah. And that is that is part of the guide that we shared before. So wayofthemuse.com/soulmate is where you can get that one. And we'll go a lot deeper into some of these other aspects in our program that we talked about in our last episode, which is the Way of Growing Love. And that is our program that is in the collective right now, our monthly membership program. It starts in about a week. And that is really about communication skills. It's about learning the skills, and we'll talk more about this, that set you up to have a really thriving relationship when you find that love. But we're also doing a full kind of mini program bonus module, very in depth on finding love. So if you are going through the Growing Love program and you're not yet in a relationship, you still need those foundational skills and tools. But then we have specific content that goes much deeper into how do you call in love and kind of move through some of these things that can get in your way. So if you're curious about that one at all, it's wayofthemuse.com/collective. If you're listening to this in the month of, October or November 2024, if you're listening to this later, we'll have a page up for it where you can just purchase the program as it's a standalone self-study, and you can email support@wayofthemuse.com if you're curious about that. So support@wayofthemuse.com. So in that, Gigi, what else do you see? What are some of the other things that slow down this process or get in the way when someone's really looking for love? Because a lot of the people I talk to, the women who are looking for love at this age, I guess maybe it's something about being in your mid 30s to, a lot of the people I'm connected to are in their 30s, 40s. I find that there are women that I talk to who have been here for a while. They feel like, man, I've really been looking and I haven't found that person. So like, what's stopping me? So what else do you see with people?
Holding on to the past. What happens is if you've had a bad experience and you're holding on to that, then this creates something in you, maybe that you're actually repelling people away from you. Excuse me. So it's really important to see what's, to do some work there and see what are you holding on to? Has this created a perception about, let's say if you're a woman, has it created a perception about men to where you have certain, things from your past relationship that where you were hurt. And so now you have a view about men, and in that view, then it keeps you from really getting out there and getting curious about the men out there, and that there are some really great men out there. And this is a big one, because if you don't look into this, what happens is you'll go and create the same thing. And so it's really, really important to see, where are you stuck there, or where are you in pain, or where are you hurting, and get the support you need. In the work that I've done with women for years is to walk through certain exercises and look and see what they're holding on to so they can move past it. They can go to forgiveness. So then they have a fresh start and they can really go, there is a great person out there for me. Because I think a lot of times when we're hurt, somewhere in the back of our minds, we think, maybe there's really no great man out there.
Yeah, it's true. I definitely hear that, even that just as a story, or like it's hard to find great men, or dating in this city is hard, or whatever it might be for you. I'm curious though, is this something that, holding on to something from the past, some people may not have looked at this and others have. They've really looked and they think they've addressed this. Do you ever see this be, though, like a blind spot for women? Like they think, oh, I'm not holding on to things. But then you as a coach can look and see, like, actually, there's some things that are showing up here that maybe, is that true? Or is it typically people are pretty self-aware? If you mention this, they can like look and see like, oh yeah, I see what I'm holding on to.
No, it's definitely a blind spot. Yeah, it's a blind spot. Yeah, and it's hard to see in yourself, you know, so it does require, I think, either a coach or a therapist or someone to support you to walk through it. But you're absolutely right on. Most, or I wouldn't say most, but a lot of women think, oh, I'm fine. I got through that. I'm done with it. But still, there's something in them where their heart's closed, you know, and they're not completely willing to get vulnerable and really walk through, you know, going for another partnership. And maybe because they are afraid that they'll get hurt again, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because, like you said, I think sometimes people end up calling in something similar because they haven't fully, I mean, that's really a sign, I think. If you're calling in this, if you keep having a similar sort of dynamic with people when you're dating or when you're in relationships, and it's showing up again and again, even when you're trying to make different choices, then often there is something unintegrated there or something that gets to be really moved through and released in order to call something different in. The other thing, though, I was just speaking to a friend the other day who's dating right now, and this was actually a man. And I think it's important to be aware, too, that sometimes something we talked about that was an aha moment for him was he's dating this person who's very, very different than his former partner. And a little bit I could hear in there, I said, you know, I'm curious, like, you know, is this a pendulum swinging the other way kind of thing, though? There was a little bit of like a react, and he was like, oh my gosh, you're right. She's so different. She's the opposite end of the spectrum, but maybe in this case, a little too much so, right? Where is it what he really wanted, or was it just sort of a reaction? So that's something to be aware of too, is that sometimes we're going like, no way, I don't want that thing. We swing the other direction rather than really landing on what's really aligned for you. So that's something to be aware of when something's not fully integrated there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What else?
Yeah. So the other one is not educating yourself. How do you create harmony with the opposite sex? You know, how do you create a relationship that's going to, always say, expand over time instead of contract? And there is almost this unconscious belief that people have that relationships are just supposed to work out. And we don't really need to understand them, or, you know, we should just know how to do them. And this is one of the biggest myths in life, I think, because, you know, if you look at the work and the time and the attention and the awareness and the consciousness you put into your connection, Makena, with Sunny, and that is the reason why you have a great harmonious workshop. That is why
we workshop all the time. It's true.
That is why you have a great harmonious relationship. Now, you have a great foundation. You guys love each other and came together. And like you said, your values are similar. So you have a foundation. But if you didn't have the tools you have, it would be a whole different ballgame, right? You know this.
Hugely. I mean, you're right. The amount of time and energy and attentiveness it takes is a lot. It's an ongoing, continuous, I don't know how to describe it, effort and, you know, area of intentionality. And I think sometimes women who aren't in relationship would think about that and go, do I really want that? You know, it sounds like a lot of work. That sounds hard. I will say, though, that having had these tools, many of them going into this relationship and starting out this way from the beginning, made it so that it's challenge. It's, of course, there's challenges and there's, you know, it does take time and effort, But there's also a lot of ease to it. We set a certain foundation from the beginning, and then it's just growing upon that foundation and just checking in regularly and continuing that. So I would say that it gives me, this is without a doubt, it feeds me so much more than the effort that I put in, right? Our relationship and what it gives me is 10x the amount of effort. So yes, it is time and effort. And you might be looking at your life going, I don't know how that's even going to work. But if you're willing to put that time and effort in, and if it's the right person and there's alignment, you just can't even describe what it gives to you. And a lot of people don't know that that's really possible because they've never had a relationship like that. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this topic is I want more people to, even if it's just through hearing one person like me share, right? Or starting to look in their lives for examples of other great partnerships to really get what that kind of quality of connection can be and what it can give you.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made that distinction because a lot of people have no idea. You're absolutely right about that. And what I have found from, again, all my years of experience is when people are willing to get curious about what it takes to really grow something profound and something, like I said, that expands over time. And they're willing to put the work in, they do have these quality connections. And even if it's a temporary relationship that, it's not the one, but you practice and you learn about yourself and you really educate yourself on relationship, it is far above anything else often that, someone has had. It's above something else that they've ever had. And it sets them up to also practice and then really find their partner down the line. And so this is so important when I talk about the not educating yourself, knowing these differences that I have spent my career looking at and understanding and also sharing with men and women is how we're so different, how the masculine and feminine are so different, and how we can work together and how our differences really complement each other. Where if you walk through life and you hear most people talking, they would say they don't complement each other. They, rub each other the wrong way. But it is the way when you start to learn, your perception shifts and you really see how we're designed to work together. And then the other thing is knowing what you want and how to communicate that. That's so often you see that with Makena, with the women that we work with, is we have this way of communicating in such a way that we tell people what we don't want instead of what we do want. And so when we get what we don't want, we're upset about it, but that's what we've been asking for the whole time, right?
Yeah, we don't think we're asking for that, but through complaining and blaming and criticizing and these kinds of things, we're just reinforcing in a way what we don't want rather than really knowing a framework, a way to ask for what you want in such a way that it feels like a win-win, or in such a way that your partner can really hear and understand. And underneath, when you're in a relationship, when there's love there, like, of course you want your partner to get what they want. You both do, right? But if you're feeling like you're always on opposite sides there's a whole dynamic. So these are skills for you to learn before you go into the relationship. And that's one other misconception I think is important to touch on, is that people think that they just need to focus on finding the relationship and then they can learn all the things about how to be in relationship.
Yeah.
Right? If you're single, probably all of your attention is like, how do I find a partner? But what if you really put the time and the energy into not only how do I find this person, but also, like you said, Gigi, really understanding the differences between men and women, or the masculine and feminine, and knowing what you want or how to communicate what you want. And I think you're going to share a few other things here as well. It's like, if you put that time in now, first of all, you're sort of telling the universe or God that you're ready, and that you're getting ready, and that when that person comes in, you are the person that is ready to be in relationship with them, and you have the skills and you have the tools. What a beautiful way to start that, as opposed to like, okay, all I've got to do is like focus on finding that person. And then when they show up, then, oh my gosh, all my stuff comes up, all my
patterns,
triggers, all
everything.
my patterns. Yeah.
That's
So,
where getting educated on communication skills, so that when there is a conflict, most people don't know how to handle that. So when there's a conflict, you know how to actually set it up to have harmony. And I think we talked about that in a past podcast, is those misunderstandings. If you don't know how to do that, a lot of times those are the things that start to create separation in people, and they don't know how to navigate it. They just dig themselves further into a hole sometime. And then the other big one is knowing your own impact, understanding how you come across. And, do you put people's lights out, or, is your pattern of communication, like you said, complaining and blaming? And so over time, when you're with a partner, they just stop listening. And so really starting to see that and really learn about yourself in this deep way, and not in a way to criticize yourself, but in a way to wake up and go, oh my gosh. Usually when I reflect this to people, they're shocked because they had no idea they were doing it. So if you put the time into learning about yourself like this and educating yourself, you're so far ahead of the game that when you do find that perfect partner, then you know how to really build something, and build something like you have done in terms of building something that is getting better and better over the years. And, I just want to bring up one other point, because you're talking about people in their 30s, but also for people in their 50s, 60s, often I will see you have couples that have been together for a long, long time. And again, there's this kind of attitude of, okay, this is just the way we are. Yeah, we're doing fine. That's the way we are. But they're not willing to go, wait a minute, this is the way we are, but I really, really want to be really close to my partner again. And I'd love to have this relationship grow and get better through the years. And so they kind of get a little lazy. And it's so important to put the time and work in, because by doing that, as you were speaking of earlier, their experience and the reward and the quality of their life will change completely. And I've witnessed this so many times. I led the Secrets of Power Couples last February, and you were there too and leading it with me. And you just saw when the couples found ways to connect and to speak to each other in a way they'd never been able to do before, ever, in their whole entire relationship. The depth and the quality of their connection was so profound, and they were blown away by it. They didn't know it was possible. That's what some of them said.
Yeah, and this was your retreat, right? Secrets of Power Couples, week-long retreat, which you lead about once a year. Yeah, absolutely. The transformation, they're still telling us the impact and how that's shifted for them. And so, that's amazing when you can go even with your partner or something like that. And then, for those who are listening who aren't in partnership yet, again, it starts with really, and even those of you who are both, it really starts with educating yourself and with learning these skills, learning these tools, seeing your impact, so that it's amazing how much gets cleared up right there. People would not believe it. I mean, we see that with some of the women coming out of our retreat, where there's been these dynamics, whether it's in their relationships, their romantic relationships, or with their kids or at the office, that they thought, oh, it's definitely the other person, right? It's definitely the other person. And, it is just the way it is. And then with just a few tools and skills and seeing their impact and some of these kinds of things that we've walked them through in the retreat and since in our mastermind program, you see huge changes happening in such a short period of time, where they're like, oh my gosh, people are acting completely different. What happened? And it's like,
who changed, right?
Yeah.
I didn't change. They changed, right?
Overnight, suddenly they're a different person. So that's really the power of this. And that's what I want to say about like educating yourself. And why did we combine the Growing Love and the Finding Love into one program, right? Instead of just doing a separate program on Finding Love and one on Growing Love, is because as you're going through this process of educating yourself, of of learning these skills, of seeing your impact, something will start to shift there, even just energetically, right? And in yourself and the way the views you hold and how how open you are, and something will start to open up there, which will pave the way for you to call in that love. And then we can look at the tools and the tactics and whatever else to really do that. But that's something I see a lot too, is people go directly out and they're like, okay, I'm going to go start dating, or I'm going to go find a dating coach. And that's great. And sometimes it works, but a lot of times there are these pieces underneath. And so they're struggling there and something's not moving. So that's really, really important, is to walk it all the way through.
Yeah. And, if you are looking for a partner and you've been hesitant or you don't find the time, we had a woman that worked with for many, many years, and she was ready to find another partner. But every time she started moving that direction, it just didn't stick. She didn't do it. And finally, we found a game or a container, a way of approaching it that was fun for her to go out and find a partner. And she went after it, and she had that partner in 5 days. 5 days. Remember, Makena, what
literally
I'm talking about.
5 days. She was like, okay, I already found them. Or like, somebody already wants to date me. And we were like, what?
Yeah. So see what works for you. Make it, I'm a game person, make it, if you're a woman, you're looking for a man, just start talking to 10 men a week in the grocery store, at the coffee shop, and just talk to them. You're not looking for a date, but start to, go into that of just being connected to men again. If you've been kind of isolating yourself, those simple little actions can start to create a big change right there. Just having fun with it.
Absolutely. And just to share one more time, if you want that free guide on how to call in your soulmate, it is wayofthemuse.com/soulmate. The Growing Love program, the Way of Growing Love, that also includes the bonus modules on finding love. We're running that live in the collective. So that is wayofthemuse.com/collective. And then if you're not listening to this in October, November 2024, then you can just email us at support@wayofthemuse.com, and we'll let you know how you can get that as a self-study program once it's concluded, the live version. So thank you all for listening. Take one thing that you learned today, put it into action, and we will see you in the next episode.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Makena.
That's our episode for today, but let's not make it the end of our love story. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and think of some women in your life you'd love to share it with. And if you want to learn more about our events and programs, visit wayofthemuse.com. See you next time.